Hello, welcome to my startup TV. I'm Major Sunil Shetty. Today is an important day for Bharatiyas. It's Kargil Vijay Divas. A day some 25 years ago, young men and women on the peaks around Kargil, sacrificed everything that they had for the nation. As I always say, as long as there are youth ready to die for the nation, our armed forces will have people. And as long as people continue to shower us with love and affection, armed forces will keep writing that blank check which basically carries their life. So keep doing that for us and we'll keep doing it. On this occasion of Kargil Vijay Divas, we are relaunching our special show called Soldierpreneurs. It is a show for soldiers who have taken up entrepreneurship as their second innings after they put up their uniforms. On this show, I have a special guest who's from the Army, Colonel Abraham Cherian, who's the founder of 360-degree Wealth Advisory. Now, I must say, as an armed forces person, as a veteran myself, many of the armed forces people need this advice. They need this hand holding because we don't have time or we don't understand what's happening in the real world to keep a track of, let alone understand where to put our money. So, a service like 360-degree Wealth Advisor would come handy. So, welcome, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Colonel Cherian, before we start, your thoughts on on this day, Kargil Vijay Divas, and recently because this becomes even more important with recently concluded operation, or rather ongoing Operation Sindoor, the one which is paused. What are your thoughts?
Pretty straightforward, actually. It's good that we remember these kind of days, of victory. It's very important for the people in our country to understand the kind of work that our armed forces have done to secure our country and also to get us where we are. And it is not just about sacrifices, right? Sacrifices, of course, is a very big thing, but it's also the fact that, while people are sleeping, working, making money or whatever, there are there is a large component of society that is out there on the borders guarding us, and they are doing a very good job. Right? So therefore, these kind of days, I think it is good that people like you are celebrating them and bringing them to the people so that even if they forget, it's now almost 25 years, but people should not forget.
Very true, sir. Very true. In fact, you brought up a very valid point. We may remember our soldiers when when there is a threat to national security, but then on day-to-day basis, there are a lot of sacrifice that happens, keeping away from the family. And not meeting our children, not being part of the special occasion, whether it is their birthdays, our own anniversaries, or being part of the parent-teacher meet, which are day-to-day requirement, which most soldiers, most men and women miss out on. So, sir, with that, if you could give us a brief about your service background as to how many years did you serve, where were you, and if you can help with that.
Happy to do that. So I'm a alumnus of National Defense Academy, and I passed out of NDA in 1993, and then IMA in 1994. I was commissioned into 52 Field Regiment Sanjoy Mirpur. And Sanjoy Mirpur is, by the way, the honor title of the regiment from 1965 war. Uh, and I have, as part of service with the regiment, I've served at Siachen Glacier in 1996, 97 as an OP officer. I was wounded there. And thereafter, uh, I have done the usual courses in the army, like long gunnery staff course for artillery officers, thereafter staff college, and then the junior command, senior command, and all of that. But in terms of where I've been posted, the interesting ones, of course, are that I've spent about 9.5 years of my service all along the line of control in JNK. I've served in all divisions except for one. Uh, and I commanded my regiment in counterinsurgency operations in the Baramulla sector. I've also been the GSO one or the BM of an armored brigade and the Colonel GS of an infantry brigade, infantry division. I've served in the United Nations mission in Congo. And of course, I've also served in Army headquarters in the MS branch. Those who are not familiar, this is a branch that looks after officers, postings, promotions. And I specifically served in a section which was handling the promotions to colonels and above, and also looking at policies, promotion policies and long-term uh, this kind of restructuring of the organization, etc. And I commanded my regiment from 2010 to 2013, 3 years, most of it in Baramulla. And then for 1 year, last 1 year, I was on a staff appointment as Colonel GS of an infantry division. Thereafter, I moved on from the army. I had completed 20 years. So it was a planned transition. And I moved on from there.
Well, I must say that's a pretty much all the areas one could do, and the medals that you have displayed at the background also are testimony to that. So you know it's not easy to transit from a life in the armed forces to a civilian lifestyle, because there's so many changes, some challenges come up, your whole life changes upside down. I experienced that way back in 2000 when I had to move do the transition. And within that, if you're thinking of starting your own venture, that's a different ball game altogether, different challenge altogether. So what was the first, what was the reason you decided to get into start your own venture? Was it the first one you started off with? And if you could talk about that as to why you decided to take on to entrepreneurship vis-a-vis going for a full-time job.
It's a good question. Actually, it was a very delayed step for me because when I left the army in 2014, entrepreneurship was not on my mind at all, to be honest. And so I went to the US. I did my MBA at the Fletcher School in Boston, Tufts University. Worked in a startup there in healthcare analytics. Then I came back to India, and I was working with this company in financial services called Muthoot FinCorp Limited. That's in gold loans. I used to be the head of their gold loan products, managing about 12,000 crores odd of portfolio. And then I moved on to HSBC. I was managing a global analytics team in corporate services and procurement. And then after that, I moved to another company. Last year, in fact, 2023, Gen AI became a very big, event. And that is the time that I joined a technology company in Hyderabad as head of technical sales. Right. So in terms of my journey, I've done a lot of operations in the army, managing organizations and leading people, etc. Then I've done financial services, understood how finances work, the financial world works. I also looked at data and analytics. I learned that. Then I Sales was something I'd never done. I was always afraid, but I don't know if I'll be able to sell things to people. So I got into this technical sales job, which as you know, is the role that connects the technology side of the business with the sales teams and the clients. So it involved, talking to a lot of clients in the US, Europe, Middle East, Singapore, etc., along with the sales teams. It was very challenging. It was the first time, I was 50 years old or 52 years old, and I was doing sales for the first time. So I did that. And then I realized that, it is time to try something of my own. And having been in financial services, what better than to do something where there is a gap, not just for armed forces officers, but even in the, corporate world or the private sector, people do not have access to good advice. They have access to financial products, right? So they have loans and they have bank, accounts, and they have credit cards and all kinds of things which people are constantly selling to them, insurance policies. But they do not have advice, somebody to tell them, look, should you take this credit card or not? Should you take this loan or do something else? Is this insurance policy good for you? Where should you invest? And therefore, I said, let me do that. And so I became a SEBI registered financial advisor and started my own firm. It's a proprietorship at the moment, but I hope to grow.
And what are the challenges? Firstly, it is like uh, having worked, once stepping out of the armed forces, taking up jobs, and then graduating on to being an entrepreneur. Do you think that was that really helped you? Because it must have helped you with the connections you made, learnings, transition. Would you advise that for all those who are right now waiting to step out? Would you suggest them the same journey?
Believe that everybody has, his or her own journey, right? So some people, so for example, when I was leaving the army, people said, that some people said, "Arey, I already have a job lined up. The day I come out, the next day I'm joining this." I didn't have it. It took me 4 months to get my first job. So I had a very different journey. Now there are people who come out and straight away start their own entrepreneurship journey, while I took 10 years. But I don't say that, look, wait for 10 years and then do it. But definitely what happens is that if you work in one or two organizations, you understand what the market is like, what running a business is, the basics of it. That there is, how do you manage revenue, how do you manage costs? Costs are very important. One of the questions that I get from my course-mates who are still serving is, Ajay, you started your company, so you must be having 5, 10 employees. I don't know, each employee costs a lot of money, so I will only hire when I'm 100% certain that they will add value to the business, right? But it takes time to understand these things. And why not spend a couple of years in a company as an employee, but in the right kind of roles, right? To understand it, and then start your own, because then you know what's happening in the environment. That helps. The second thing is, there are many people who don't need this. They can straight away, intuitively, they can go and start doing it. I probably was not that kind of a person, so I said, it took me a lot of time and a lot of courage. The other important thing is selling, because whatever business you may have, it is about selling. Because if you don't sell, you don't generate revenue. If you don't have revenue, why do you have a business? Therefore, it's important to understand that selling is the most important part of running any business, whether it is a service, it is a product. you know you're always selling some, like I'm selling my services, right? So, and in the armed forces, somehow, it is the experience that I had was networking, connecting with people. It is not so important. You just do your work, right? Put your head down and do your work sincerely, and you're done. But in the business world, you should be able to connect. The more people you know, the more opportunities there are, right? And the more people you can sell to. So therefore, it's important to understand these things and then jump in, of course. And it is not easy. The whole process is not easy. Uh, I have heard this in many places. अपने देश में मारवाड़ी लोग कहते हैं ना कि नया धंधा शुरू किया, अगर 1000 दिन चल गया तो चल जाएगा.
मिल जाएगा, बिल्कुल सही है.
So 1,000 days you should not give up, and you have to keep going. There will be bad days when you will feel that, "Arey, nobody wants to talk to me, nobody wants what I'm selling." And there will be good days when there is chappad फाड़ के आता है, and then you don't know कि इसको handle कैसे करूंगा. So all
बिल्कुल सही,
kinds of
बिल्कुल
things,
सही.
and it's very exciting.
No, no, very true. What you said is true. That's the other part of entrepreneurship. That is, as they say, it's a lonely journey, because as a founder, it is you, especially when you're at the very early stage, and then you have to have that strength, mental strength, to go through those cycles of ups and downs. Some good days, some bad days, rather more bad days and less good days. But then that's what you go through. So now coming to 360-degree wealth advisory. Firstly, why did you think, one you said, they don't, a lot of people selling it to them, to the armed forces, or people who are still in the service. uh, Basically, typically we see all these LIC policies being sold to us, mutual funds being sold to us, but then the advisory itself is missing. So, what was the idea when you started off? Was it to give it online, or meet them and do it? How did you? Because they're not in one place, right? And most of the time, they're either in separated family accommodations, they're posted, and they're moving, because that's the other challenge, right? Every 2 years you're moving from place A to place B. How would you keep a track of that? So, what if you can just paint that picture as to what were the thoughts when you decided to do this?
Only about 10 months. I'm very, 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 very new to this entrepreneurship. So I cannot claim to be an expert. It's just, I'm just taking it the way it comes. But when I started off, yes, my my primary focus was on armed forces officers to begin with, and then later on to go down to men and all of that. But the idea was absolutely that look, they are all over the country, and therefore it is not easy to connect with them, and which also means that it is not easy for them to connect with a good advisor, right? They see what happens in most cantonments. There is one CA guy or somebody who roams around and says, "Ki, sir, you buy this," and then one CO likes it, and the whole unit will do it. Then one, some station commander likes it, the whole station will do the same thing and take it from him. So those kind of things happen. So, sir, how do you break that and connect with people? So today, fortunately, there are lots of channels, like there is WhatsApp, there is people are on LinkedIn, and then there is word of mouth, which takes longer time to come across. That is one part. The second was I was always clear that my business is not targeting the armed forces alone. It is also for corporate and private sector. The reason is I've spent 10 years, and this is where the advantage of having worked in the private sector for 10 years comes in. I have connections. I understand how the corporate sector works. How a corporate sector employee is looking at his or her personal life and their own personal finances. The other thing is, see, the way a private sector employee looks at their personal finance is very different from the way an armed forces officer does it. And there are learnings from both sides, which can be, cross-pollinated. So good learnings from the corporate sector can be brought into the armed forces officers to implement, and the learnings from this side can be taken there and doing that. These are opportunities to improve the ability to manage your financial, plan. So how I'm looking at it is, yes, that.
No, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you wanted to ask something.
No, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So how I'm looking at it is that, uh, you see, my focus is currently, as far as armed forces officers go, there are almost 1,300 officers who retire every year, right? And typically, between 1.5 to 2.5 crores is the corpus that they come out with, their retirement benefits and their savings and all that. And what happens is that the moment the banks see that money has come into the account, they will start bombarding them with, yeah, take this insurance policy, take this, invest here, invest that. And I'm trying to help them not get caught up in that and say, look, uh, work with somebody who is not interested in selling you stuff, right? Who's interested in giving you the right advice, which might also include saying, no, don't buy this, right? A distributor or an agent will never say, don't buy this, because usko commission nahi milega fir.
Correct.
But as a SEBI registered advisor, it is my job to tell people that if something is not suited for them, then they should not buy it. It's okay, right? The other thing I've seen is that there is one set of officers who say, oh, I don't know what's happening, so much of money, I will play safe, I will put it in FDs. So they will lose money because of inflation, the FD will lose its value. The other extreme is, people say, Arey, that co-mate of mine, he was saying he has 5 crores. I have only 2 crores. मैंने क्या कर दिया, कुछ गड़बड़ हो गई है. So I have to make up for it. And when they get that money, they will say, let me put it in this investment. I will do futures. I will do options trading, and they will lose it. So there is this, extremes that are there. Risky behavior and absolutely safe behavior. Both are detrimental to the financial health of a person. And I'm trying to bridge that gap and get people to come in. And obviously, there is a business model around it. I am not saying that, the commission model is bad. It's a business model, right? It's a way of providing certain services to people who need it. I have a different service and I'm providing it in a different way. And the service that I provide is highly regulated, right, by SEBI. I'm bound by a lot of regulations and rules, which makes my case that much stronger because I'm backed by the government of India. You know,
And that's the credibility, isn't it? I mean, that
Yes,
as a civil
absolutely.
registered,
You can't just get away with whatever you want to say, because if you see Instagram, it is full of advisors who keep using people who create these small reels, and they might use anybody's photograph and start giving tips. So it's not like that. So when you say you're a SEBI registered, that itself is a stamp of authentication, right? So, do you see that? Is there awareness among armed forces personnel, especially Jawans, about their wealth? that they could park their money beyond just the regular ones, the FDs and real estate?
Very great question. And what I'm hearing is that, Jawans are getting involved in things like borrowing money and doing futures trading options and, margin trading and all of that. They invest in risky things like crypto. Because the reason is that earlier, maybe 15, 20 years ago, the only contact that the Jawans had with finances was through their bank, or that one guy who would come to the unit that LIC ka wo policy karega. Today it is through their phone, and there is no limit to what they can consume through their phone. And most of the time it is these things that are bad for them that they are consuming. Yeah, it's not just financial but also things like betting, then betting on these IPL games and all that. So they do a lot of stuff like this. It's not good, but then the point is what they can consume is what they are acting on. So therefore it's important that even as an organization the armed forces must take efforts to educate people, and that is one of the initiatives. For example, retiring officers, there is a seminar where there is a financial advisor or a planner who gives a talk on how to plan your finances during retirement. That's something that I've also applied to, and I'm waiting for a response from them to confirm it so that I can go and do that. It's important because uh, people get money, they don't know what to do with. I think what is also important is to do this while people are much earlier in their service. When they get commissioned, when they're doing the young officers course, when they go for JC. Uh, by the time they retire, it's too late to do much. Right? So
Very true.
therefore, there are opportunities, there are steps being taken. But yes, for our Jawans, that education is very, very important. Why Jawans, even officers who say, look, what kind of return can you give me? And I say, look, regulations do not permit me to state a number because it depends on market conditions and your profile and how much risk you can take and how much time frame, all of that. But people say, no, yaar, mere ko 25% return chahiye. So the world doesn't work like that.
Very true. This is see, one thing
Very
very
important, as you rightly brought out, is how people asking, or people in the uniform asking, what return can I give, which you as a SEBI registered, or the people who are genuinely into it, is not those scamsters. You can't give a number, and that is where that is why people like you and a company like you are needed, who will give them the right advice without making any false promises. So, what's the future for your company, 360-degree wealth advisory?
So the future for my company is this, right? One is that I want to focus on 40-year-old plus age groups because they have that 20-year timeline to save and build their corpus in their wealth. That is one. But then once that is at a stable state, I want to go to the 20-year-olds because I feel that while we may still be aware and try to do something about our finances, our kids who are starting to work, they're 22, 23-year olds, they're starting to work. They are bombarded with how they can spend money. iPhone le lo, buy now, pay later, or go on a holiday, or take a loan and go on a holiday and stuff like that. But is there anyone providing them financial advice? Nobody. So I want to go and be in that space where you start very young. The second thing is, see, now that I've done about 1 year, I realize that running a business and scaling a business is about how much you can invest in it. It's not just about money. It is about time, what kind of technology you use, what kind of people you hire. And I will give you an example. Till about 2 months ago, I was doing everything manually. That means I make a plan and then I say, okay, my clients I'll onboard them onto one of these platforms like Grow or Zerodha and say, "Wahan pe kariye," and every 3 months I will review it. But now very recently I've gone on procured a platform for myself. It's available in the market. So B2B, they'll give it to you and all your clients are onboarded. The moment I've done it, I realized that now I can scale it up 3x just by making this change. Otherwise, you keep thinking, oh, I have to spend money on this platform. It's an ongoing, it's a variable cost, and so I should not do it, and I'm not confident. But the moment I did that, I realized my scope has changed totally. So therefore, my advice to people who are, trying to start these kind of entrepreneurship is that uh, cost is not a negative. Spending on something to build your business is not a negative. You have to spend on the right things, whether it is technology, people, or building your own processes. It You must invest in your business, and then it will take some time to grow, but it will surely grow as long as you've done it right.
Viewers, we are in conversation with Colonel.
Cherian, who's from securing borders to now he's into securing financials of veterans. Finally, before I let you go, My Startup TV, we are a media house for entrepreneurs like you. We use all of our five verticals: web television, news portal, web TV, OTT, and digital magazine to showcase entrepreneurs and startups, which the mainstream media does not. What do you think about the kind of work we are doing?
See, yesterday or I think day before when we connected, and I said, I'm interested in coming on your show. I just went through your videos and your, the work that you've done. I think it is excellent because there is a lot of noise out there in the market. Everything is very high profile. Only people who get a lot of funding will come on these kind of shows. They will go on Shark Tank, and whether end of the day they are profitable or not, they'll go on Shark Tank. But I think you're doing great service because uh, one is that it is showcasing people like us, but the other thing is it's also helping others to get motivated to start their journey. Because I think there is a lot of fear or that lack of confidence. कि पता नहीं मैं कर पाऊंगा कि नहीं कर पाऊंगा. And I think one of the, at least for armed forces officers, is what I realized was that when I started this, एक तारीख को salary नहीं आई. So, and you're for 29 years or 30 years, you're used to getting a salary on the first, right? And suddenly there is no salary. So you see, it takes some time to get used to it. And then you slowly realize that no, if I do the right things, I will be able to get to where I was earlier. And this realization, I think you are bringing into the world by letting people know that look, ये सब होता है, it is normal. You have to go through it, and then you will reach that stage where you have a good business that is helping people.
Thank you for that.
Colonel Cherian. Viewers, if you want to hear such interesting conversation, do join My Startup TV for the daily live show, which is Thought Leader Show and Founder Talk Show. Colonel Cherian, thank you very much for joining, and we hope to see you again on some of our panel talks and subsequent shows.
It's a pleasure to be here, and all the best to you.
Thank you.
Cut? Great. So, just to